Welcome to my channel! Hello guys, I'm Screen Recorder and today I will be doing storytelling The Enchanted Canary. The Enchanted Canary. This story is about a prince called Desire seeks a bride in warmer lands. Once upon a time, in the reign of King Cambrinus, there lived at Advance one of his lords, who was the finest man, by which I mean the fattest, in the whole country of Flanders. He ate 4 meals a day, slept 12 hours out of the 24, and the only thing he did was to shoot at small birds with his bow and arrow. Still, with all his practice, he shot very badly. He was so fat and heavy, and as he grew daily fatter, he was at last obliged to give up walking and be dragged about by others, and the people make fun of him and gave him the name of my Lord Tubby. Now, the only trouble that Lord Tubby had was about his son, whom he loved very much, although they were not in the least alike, for the young prince was as thin as a cuckoo, and what vexed him more than all was that though the young ladies throughout all his lands did their best to make the prince fall in love with them, he would have nothing to say to any of them, and told his father he did not wish to marry. Instead of chatting with them in the dusk, he wandered about the woods, whispering to the moon. No wonder the young ladies thought him very odd, but they liked him all the better for that. And as he had received at his birth the name of Desire, they all called him Domo Desire. "What is the matter with you?" his father often said to him. "You have everything you can possibly wish for, a good bed, good food, and tons of full of beer. The only thing you want, in order to become as fat as a pig, is a wife that can bring you broad, rich lands. So marry, and you will be perfectly happy." "I ask nothing better than to marry," replied Desire, "but I have never seen a woman that pleases me. All the girls here are pink and white, and I am tired to the death of their eternal lily and roses. There must be women somewhere in the world who are neither pink nor white, and I tell you, one and for all, that I will never marry until I have found one exactly to my taste." Some time afterwards, it happened that the prior of the Abbey of Saint Amand sent to the Lord of Advance a basket of oranges, with a beautifully written letter saying that this golden fruit, then unknown in Flanders, came straight from a land where the sun always shone. That evening, Tubby and his son ate the golden apples at supper and thought them delicious. Next morning, as the day dawned, Desire went down to the stable and standed his pretty white horse. Then he went, all dressed for a journey, to the bedside of Tubby and found him smoking his first pipe. "Father," he said gravely, "I have come to bid you farewell. Last night I dreamed that I was walking in a wood, where the trees were covered with golden apples. I gathered one of them, and when I opened it, there came out a lovely princess with golden skin. That is the wife I want, and I am going to look for her." The young man took his father's hand, kissed it tenderly, opened the door, and in the twinkling of an eye was as at the bottom of the staircase. He jumped lightly on his horse and soon was a mile from home. The servants mounted their horses and rode after the prince, but as they did not know which route he had taken, they went all way except the right one. and instead of bringing him back, they returned themselves when it grew dark. with their horses worn out and covered with dust. When Desire thought they could no longer catch him, he put his horse into a walk, like a prudent man who knows he has far to go. He traveled in this way for many weeks, passing by villages, towns, mountains, valleys, and plains, but always pushing south, where every day the sun seemed hotter and more brilliant. At last, one day at sunset, Desire felt the sun so warm that he thought he must now be near the place of his dream. He was at the moment close to the corner of a wood, where stood a little hut. Before the door was which his horse stopped of his own accord. An old man with a white beard was sitting on the doorstep enjoying the fresh air. The prince got down from his horse and asked leave to rest. "Come in, my young friend," said the old man. "My house is not large, but it is big enough to hold a stranger." The traveler entered, and his host put before him a simple meal. When his hunger was satisfied, the old man said to him, "If I do not mistake, you come from far. May I ask where you are going?" "I will tell you," answered Desire, "though most likely you will laugh at me. I dreamed that in the land of the sun there was a wood full of orange trees, and then in one of the oranges I should find a beautiful princess who is to be my wife. It is she I am seeking." "Why should I laugh?" said the old man. "Madness in youth is true wisdom." "Go, go, young man, follow your dream, and if you do not find happiness that you seek, at any rate, you will have had the happiness of seeking it." The next day, the prince arose early and took leave of his host. "The wood that you saw in your dream is not far from here," said the old man. "It is in the depth of the forest, and this road will lead you there. You will come to a vast park, surrounded by high walls. In the middle of the park is a castle, where dwells a horrible witch who allows no living being to enter the doors. Behind the castle is the orange grove. Follow the wall till you come to a heavy iron gate. Don't try to place it open, but oil the hinges with this." And the old man gave him a small bottle. "The gate will open of itself," he continued, "and a huge dog, which guards the castle, will come to you with his mouth wide open. But just throw him this old cake. Next, you will see a baking woman leaning over her heated oven. Give her this brush. Lastly, you will find a well on your left. Do not forget to take the cord of the bucket and spread it in the sun. When you have done this, do not enter the castle, but go round it and enter the orange grove. Then gather 3 oranges and get back to the gate as fast as you can. Once out of the gate, leave the forest by the opposite side. Now, attend to this. Whatever happens, do not open your oranges till you reach the bank of a river or a fountain. Out of each orange will come a princess, and you can choose which you like for your wife. Your choice once made, be very careful, never leave your bride for an instant. And remember that the danger which is most to be feared is never the danger we are most afraid of." Desire thanked his host warmly and took the route he pointed out. In less than an hour, he arrived at the wall, which was very high indeed. He sprang to the ground, fastened his horse to a tree, and soon found the iron gate. Then he took out his bottle and oiled the hinges. When the gate opened of itself, and he saw an old castle standing inside, the prince entered boldly into the courtyard. Suddenly, he heard fierce howls, and a dog as tall as a donkey, with eyes like billiard balls, came towards him, showing his teeth, which were like the prongs of a frog. Desire flung him the oat cake, which the great dog instantly snapped up, and the young prince passed quietly on. After a few yards further, he saw a huge oven with a wide, red-hot, gaping mouth. A woman as tall as a giant was leaning over the oven. Desire gave her the brush, which she took in silence. Then he went on to the well, drew up the cord, which was half rotten, and scratched it out in the sun. Lastly, he went round the castle and plunged into the orange grove. There he gathered the 3 most beautiful oranges he could find and turned to go back to the gate. But just at this moment, the sun was darkened, the earth trembled, and Desire heard a voice crying, "Baker! Baker! Take him by his foot and throw him into the oven." "No," replied the baker. "A long time has passed since I first began to score this oven with my own flesh. You never care to give me a brush, but he has given me one, and he shall go in peace." "Dog, my good dog!" cried the voice. "Jump at his throat and eat him up." "No," replied the dog. "Though I have served you long, you never gave me any bread. He has given me as much as I want. Let him go in peace." Iron gate! Iron gate!" cried the voice, growing like thunder. "Fall on him and grind him to powder." "No," replied the gate. "It is 100 years since you left me to rust, and he has oiled me. Let him go in peace." Once outside, the young adventurer put his oranges into a bag that hung from his sandal, mounted his horse, and rode quickly out of the forest. Now, as he was looking to see the princesses, he was anxious to come to a river or a fountain. But though he rode for hours, a river or fountain was now nowhere to be seen. Still, his heart was light, for he felt that he had got through the most difficult part of his task, and the rest was easy. About midday, he reached a sandy plain, scorching in the sun. Here he was seized with dreadful thirst. He took his gourd and raised it to his lips, but the gourd was empty. In the excitement of his joy, he had forgotten to fill it. He rode on, struggling with his sufferings, but at last he could bear it no longer. He let himself slide to the earth and lay down beside his horse, his throat burning, his chest heaving, and his head going round. Already he felt that death was near him when his eyes fell on the bag where the oranges peeped out. Poor Desire, who had braved so many dangers to win the lady of his dream, would have given at this moment all the princesses in the world, were they pink or gold, for a single drop of water. "Ah," he said to himself, "if only these oranges were real food, fruit as refreshing as what I ate in Flanders. And after all, who knows?" This idea put some life into him. He had the strength to lift himself up and put his hand into his bag. He drew out an orange and opened it with his knife. Out of it flew the prettiest little female canary that ever was seen. "Give me something to eat. Give me something to drink. I am dying of thirst," said the golden bird. "Wait a minute," replied Desire, so much astonished that he forgot his own sufferings, and to satisfy the bird he took a second orange and opened it without thinking what he was doing. Out of it flew another canary, and she too began to cry. "I am dying of thirst. Give me something to drink." Then Tabby's son saw his folly, and while the two canaries flew away, he sank on the ground, where, exhausted by his last effort, he lay unconscious. When he came to himself, he had a pleasant feeling of freshness all about him. It was nice. The sky was sparkling with stars, and the earth was covered with a heavy dew. The traveler, having recovered, mounted his horse, and at the first streak of dawn, he saw a screen dancing in front of him, and stooped down and drank his fill. He hardly had courage to open his last orange. Then he remembered that the nights before he had disobeyed the orders of the old man. Perhaps his terrible thirst was a trick of the cunning witch, and suppose, even though he opened the orange on the banks of the stream, that he did not find it the princess that he sought. He took his knife and cut it open. Alas! All of it flew a little canary, just like the others, who cried, "I am thirsty, give me something to drink." Great was the disappointment of Desire. However, he was determined not to let this bird fly away, so he took up some water in the palm of his hand and held it to its bay. Scarly had a canary drunk when she became a beautiful girl, tall and straight as a popular tree. With black eyes and a golden skin. Desire had never seen anyone half so lovely. And he stood gazing at her in daylight. On her side, she seemed quite bewildered. But she looked about her with happy eyes and was not at all afraid of her deliverer. He asked her name. She answered that she was called the Princess Zizi. For 10 years, the witch had kept her shut up in an orange in the shape of a canary. "Well, then, my charming Zizi," said a young prince, who was longing to marry her, "let us ride away quickly so as to escape from the wicked witch." But Zizi wished to know where he means to take her. "To my father's castle," he said. He mounted his horse and took her in front of him, and, holding her carefully in his arms, they began their journey. Everything the princess saw was new to her, and in passing through mountains, valleys, and towns, she asked 1,000 questions. Desire was charmed to answer them. It is so delightful to teach those one loves. Once she inquired what the girls in his country were like. "They are pink and white," he replied, "and their eyes are blue." "Do you like blue eyes?" said the princess, but Desire thought it was a good opportunity to find out what was in her heart, so he did not answer. "And no doubt," went on the princess, "one of them is your intended bride?" Still he was silent, and Zizi drew herself up proudly. "No," he said at last, "none of the girls of my own country are beautiful in my eyes. And that is why I came to look for a wife in the land of the sand." in the land of the sun. Was I wrong, my lovely Zizi? This time it was Zizi's turn to be silent. Talking in this way, they drew near to the castle. When they were about 4 stone throws from the gates, they dismounted in the forest by the edge of a mountain. "My dear Zizi," said Tabi-san, "we cannot present ourselves before my father like two common people who have come back from a war. We must enter the castle with more ceremony. Wait for me here, and in an hour I will return with carriages and horses fit for a princess." "Don't be long," replied Zizi, and she watched him go with wistful eyes. When she was left by herself, the poor girl began to feel afraid. She was alone for the first time in her life, in the middle of a thick forest. Suddenly, she heard a noise among the trees. Fearing lest it should be a wolf, she hid herself in the hollow trunk of a willow tree, which hung over the mountain. It was big enough to hold her all together, but she peeked out. But her pretty head was reflected in the clear water. Then there appeared not a wolf, but a creature quite as wicked and quite as ugly. Let us see who this creature was. Not far from the mountain, there lived a family of bricklayers. Now, 15 years before this time, the father, in the walking through the forest, found a little girl who had been deserted by her parents. He carried her home to his wife, and the good woman was sorry for her and brought her up with his own sons. As she grew older, the little girl became much more remarkable for strength and cunning than for sense or beauty, and she was always being teased. She got as noisy and cross as a titmouse, so they used to call her Titi. Titi was often sent by the bricklayer to fetch water from the fountain, and as she was very proud and lazy, the girl disliked this very much. It was she who had frightened Zizi by appearing with her pitcher on her shoulder, and as she was stooping to fill it, he saw reflected in the water that lovely image of the princess. "What a pretty face!" she exclaimed. "Why, it must be mine! How in the world can they call me ugly? I am certainly too pretty to be their water carrier." Saying, she broke her pitchers and went home. "Where is your pitcher?" asked the bricklayer. "Well, what do you expect? The pitcher may go many times to the well, but at last it is broken. Well, here is a bucket that will not break." The girl returned to the fountain, and addressing once more the image of Zizi, she said, "No, I don't mean to be a beast of burden any longer." And she flung the bucket so high in the air that it stuck in the branches of an oak. "I meant a wolf," she told the bricklayer, "and I broke the bucket across his nose." The bricklayer asked her no more questions, but took down a broom and gave her such a beating that her pride was humbled a little. And he handed to her an old copper milk can and said, "If you don't break it back full, your bones shall suffer for it." Titi went off rubbing her sides, but this time she did not dare to disobey, and in a very bad temper, stood down over the well. It was not at all easy to fill the milk can, which was large and round. It would not go down into the well, and the girl had to try again and again. At last, her arms grew so tired that when she did manage to get the can properly under the water, she had no strength to pull it up, and it rolled to the bottom. On seeing the can disappear, she makes such a miserable face that Zizi, who had been watching her all this time, burst into fits of laughter. Titi turned round and perceived the mistake she had made, and she felt so angry that she made up her mind to be revenged at once. "What are you doing here, you lovely creature?" she said to Zizi. "I am waiting for my lover," Zizi replied, and then, with a simplicity quite natural in a girl who was so lately had been a canary, she told all her story. The gypsy had often seen the young prince pass by, with his gun on his shoulder, when he was going after crows. She was too ugly and ragged for him ever to have noticed her, but Titi on her side had admired him, though she thought he might well have been a little fatter. "Dear, dear," she said to herself, and then she thought of a plan. "What?" cried the sly Titi. "They are coming with great pomp to fetch you, and you are not afraid to show yourself to so many fine lords and ladies with your hair down like that? Get down at once, my poor child, and let me dress your hair for you." The innocent Zizi came down at once and stood by Titi. The gypsy began to comb her hair, long brown locks, when suddenly he drew a pin from her stays, and just as the titmouse digs its beak into the heads of linnets and larks, Titi dug the pin into the head of Zizi. No sooner did Zizi feel the prick of the pin than she became a bird again, and spreading her wings, she flew away. "That was neatly done," said the girl. "The prince will be clever if he finds his bride." And arranging her dress, she seated herself on the grass to wake desire. Meanwhile, the prince was coming as fast as his horse could carry him. He was so impatient that he was always full 50 yards in front of the lords and ladies sent by Tabby to bring back Zizi. At the sight of the hideous girl who sat there instead of Zizi, he was struck dumb with surprise and horror. "Oh, me," said Titi. "So you do know your poor Zizi? While you were away, the wicked witch came and turned me into this. But if you only have the courage to marry me, I shall get back my beauty." And she began to cry bitterly. Now the good-natured Desire was so soft-hearted as she was brave. "Poor girl," he thought to himself. "It is not her fault, after all, that she has grown so ugly. It is mine. Oh, why did I not follow the old man's advice? Why did I leave her alone? And besides, it depends on me to break the spell, and I love her too much to let her remain like this." So he presented the gypsy to the lords and ladies of the court, explaining to them the terrible misfortune which had befallen his beautiful bride. They all pretended to believe it, and the ladies at once put on the false princess the rich dresses they had brought for Zizi. She was then perched on the top of a magnificent and brilliant palfrey, and they set forth to the castle. But unluckily, the rich dress and jewels only made Titi look uglier still, and Desire could not help feeling hot and uncomfortable when he made his entry with her in the city. Bells were pealing, chimes ringing, and the people filling the streets and standing at their doors to watch the procession go by, and they could hardly believe their eyes as they saw what a strange bride their prince had chosen. In order to do her more honor, Tabby came to meet her at the foot of the great marble staircase. At the sight of the hideous creature, he almost fell backwards. "What?" he cried. "Is this the wonderful beauty?" "Yes, father, it is she," replied Desire, with a sheepish look. But she has been bewitched by a wicked sorceress, and will not regain her beauty until she is my wife." "Does she say so? Well, if you believe that, you may drink cold water and think it bacon," the unhappy Tabby answered crossly. But all the same, as he adored his son, he gave the gypsy his hand and led her to great hall, where a bitter feast was spread. The feast was excellent, but Desire hardly touched anything. However, to make up, the other guests ate greedily, and as for Tabby, nothing ever took away his appetite. When the moment arrived to serve the roast goose, there was a pause, and Tabby took the opportunity to lay down his knife and fork for a little. But as the goose gave no sign of appearing, he sent his head carver to find out what was the matter in the kitchen. Now, this was what had happened. While the goose was turning on the spit, a beautiful little canary hopped on to the sill of the open window. "Good morning, my fine cook," he said in a silvery voice to the man who was watching the roast. "Good morning, lovely big golden bird," replied the chef with the scowls, who had been well brought up. "I pray that heaven may send you to sleep," said the golden bird, "and that the goose may burn, so that there may be none left for Titty." And instantly the chef of the scowls fell fast asleep, and the goose was burned to a cinder. When he awoke, he was horrified, and gave orders to pluck another goose, to stuff it with chestnuts, and put it on a spit. While it was browning at the fire, Tabby inquired for his goose a second time. The master cook himself mounted to the hall and to make his excuses, and to beg his lord to have a little patience. Tabby showed his patience by abusing his son. As if it wasn't enough, he grumbled between his teeth that the boy should pick up a hack without a penny, but the goose must go and burn now. It isn't a wife he has brought me, it is Famine herself. While the master cook was upstairs, the golden bird came again to perch on the window sill, and called in his clear voice to the head of Scowlen, who was watching the spits. "Good morning, my fine Scowlen." "Good morning, lovely golden bird," replied the Scowlen, whom the master cook had forgotten in his excitement to warn. "I pray heaven," went on the Canary, "that it will send you to sleep, and that the goose may burn, so that there may be none left for Titty." And the Scowlen fell fast asleep, and when the master cook came back, he found the goose as black as a chimney. In a fury, he woke the Scowlen, who, in order to save himself from blame, told the whole story. "That accursed bird," said the cook. "It will end by getting me sent away. Come, some for you, and hide yourself, and if it comes again, catch it and wring his neck." He spitted a third goose, lit a huge fire, and seated himself by it. The bird appeared a third time and said, "Good morning, my fine cook." "Good morning, lovely Goldman," replied the cook, as if nothing had happened. And at the moment that the canary was beginning, "I pray heaven that it may send," a scullion who was hidden outside rushed out and shut the shutters. The bird flew into the kitchen. Then all the cooks and scullions sprang after it, knocking at it with their aprons. At length, one of them caught it just at the very moment that Tabby entered the kitchen, waving his scepter. He had come to see for himself why the goose had never made its appearance. The scullion stopped at once. "Will some be kind enough to tell me the meaning of all this?" cried the Lord of Advance. "Your Excellency, it is the bird," replied the scullion, and he placed it in his hand. "Nonsense! What a lovely bird!" said Tabby, and in stroking its head, he touched a pin that was sticking between his feathers. He pulled it out, and lo, the canary at once became a beautiful girl with a golden skin who jumped lightly to the ground. "Gracious, what a pretty girl!" said Tabby. "Father, it is she! It is Zizi!" exclaimed Desire, who entered at this moment, and he took her in his arm, crying, "My darling Zizi, how happy I am to see you once more." "Well, and the other one?" asked Tabby. The other one was stealing quietly to the door. "Stop her!" called Tabby. "We will judge her cause at once." And he seated himself solemnly on the oven and condemned Titi. After which the lords and cooks formed themselves in lines, and Tabby betrothed Desire to Zizi. The marriage took place a few days later. All the boys in the countryside were dead, armed with wooden swords and decorated with epaulets made of gilt paper. Zizi obtained Titi's pardon, and she was sent back to the brick fields, followed and hooted at forevermore. On the evening of the wedding day, all the ladders, cellars, cupboards, and tables of the people, whether rich or poor, were loaded as if by enchantment, with bread, wine, beer, cakes, and tarts, roast larks, and even geese, so that Tabby could not complain any more that his son had married famine. Since that time there was always been plenty to eat in that country, and since that time too, you see in the midst of the fair-haired, blue-eyed women of Flanders a beautiful girl, whose eyes are black, and whose skins are the color of gold. They are the descendants of Zizi. This is the end of storytelling, The Enchanted Canary. So, last but not least, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my video, share my video, and click on the bell. When you click on the bell, remember to turn on the notification so you can receive a new notification when I upload a new video every day. Comment below for any topics or story you would like to see on my next video, or anything or opinions you would like to tell me. Just comment below. Okay, so we'll see you on the next video. Sayonara.